and welcome to Can You Just Sit With Me? Where I discuss hope in grief, hope in the hard place, and hope during the challenging times of life. I am your host, Natasha Smith. Thanks so much for joining me today. So today I'm so excited to introduce you to Michaela Gasseling. I met Michaela through a writers group that we are both a part of, and it really all started with a prayer request that was posted in our group for her. But we will get into her story in a minute. Again, I'm so excited for her to share her powerful story with you on today. So, hi, Michaela, and welcome to Can You Just Sit With Me?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be on a podcast that I have learned so much from.
Oh, that's so awesome to hear. So today we're actually going to be chatting about the grief of and coping with trauma. And so, Michaela, to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and just go ahead and tell us your story?
All right. Well, I live on a farm in western Nebraska. We're the third generation farmers and ranchers here on my husband's family farm. And we have 4 children, 10, 7, 4, and the baby is almost 18 months old now. So, like you said, we met in a writers group, and that prayer request was so beautiful. I wouldn't expect anything less of Taryn. She's a beautiful writer. But I'll fill you in on just why I needed so many prayers. So it was the summer of 2020, and I was pregnant with our 4th baby. And I had been having some headaches that got progressively worse through my pregnancy. And at the end, they were pretty unbearable, but we just kind of chalked everything up to pregnancy hormones and said, I'm going to get through having this baby. And then if I still have headaches, we'll go figure it out. And so in October, our beautiful, healthy baby girl was born, and it all went well. But before I even left the hospital, my headache was back just horribly. And we went home from the hospital, where I spent the next couple of days just in bed, like moaning when the pain would come over me. And finally, on about the 3rd day, it was a Saturday, with the advice of my midwife and one of my good friends who is a flight nurse, they said, it's time to go to the emergency room. Like, you can't wait for a neurology consult. Like, you've got to figure this out. And so it was a Saturday night. My husband finally drove me to the emergency room, where it was discovered after an MRI that I had a large brain tumor and severe swelling in my brain, and I needed emergency brain surgery. So at that point, like I said, we live in rural western Nebraska. I needed to be flown to Denver, Colorado, to a really great neurology hospital. But that night it was kind of sleeting and snowing, and so the helicopters were not flying. So the next option is an ambulance, which all the ambulance crews, I guess, were already out on other calls or something. The ER physician found an ambulance from a nearby town to take me, but again, didn't have an ambulance crew. And due to the strong medication that I needed on the way, I needed more than an ambulance crew. I also needed a registered nurse to be with me to give me that medicine on the way. Well, my husband, panicked in the emergency room, and obviously, understandably, very upset, had called one of my best friends, and she came down and was with us in the emergency room. And like I mentioned, she just happens to be a flight nurse. So she actually rode with me in the ambulance for our 5-hour ride to Denver. Got me there, and a couple of days later, I had to be on medication to reduce the swelling in my brain for a little while, in order for surgery to be safe. So 2 days later, I had brain surgery. It was supposed to take about 16 hours because the tumor in the back of my brain was about 6 centimeters, which is about baseball size, and just had lots of blood vessels and was really vascular. So they predicted that it would be a very long, intricate surgery. I had two brain surgeons actually, and it ended up taking 4 hours. So you can just kind of hear all of the miracles going on so far. And so that was 7 days after I'd had our fourth baby. I had brain surgery. And then 3 days later, even though they weren't sure how the surgery would affect me, if I would be able to walk, talk, swallow, all of those really important things, 3 days after brain surgery, I walked out of that hospital on my own 2 feet. And yeah, the biggest miracle ever. And came home to my family and my newborn and just got to recover. And I'm fully recovered, and yeah, no complications, no lasting effects. So just all kinds of miracles.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the short version of the story. So
Mhm. It's it is mind-blowing. It
it
is so mind-blowing, and it's just so like you said, it's miracle after miracle.
is. Mhm.
Um, like, your story is so powerful, and that's one reason why I wanted to have you here to share with, um, those who will hear it because it's just so powerful. Um, just I'll start with the ride over, in the ambulance. Like, what was going through your mind at that time? Because I know it had to be, whew.
Yeah. Um, well, I think this was another just God's grace. I was um, pretty drugged up and sleepy from the medication that they had to give me in order to get me to lay still for the MRI. So I was kind of out of it, but my friend Mickey, that was in the ambulance with me, told me that about halfway to Denver, I sat up on the stretcher and looked at her and said, "How's my baby gonna get milk?" Like it just like dawned on me that, oh my gosh, I'm on my way to this hospital in another state, and my newborn is at home with grandma, and like I had pumped a little bit of milk just in the couple of days that we'd been home, but we had no idea how long I was going to be gone or anything. And so luckily she said, "I've already handled it. I've already called some friends who have babies to see if they can bring over some milk." And just,
Wow.
yeah.
That's another miracle, like,
Yep,
what in the
absolutely.
world?
Yep. So I think for the first day or so, I was kind of just, it hadn't really set in
Mhm.
what was happening or what was going on. It all happened so fast. But then even after that, I another miracle is that I really got to experience the peace from God that surpasses all understanding, because I'm a very anxious person, and
Mhm.
you would think that I would just be absolutely freaking out about everything. But those couple of days that I spent in the hospital before my surgery, I was just calm, and we just hung out, and I did write letters to my children and to my husband, and I made them videos on my phone. And I was realistic, but we just FaceTimed, and I had a huge my Bible study ladies were rallying the entire town, the entire state. I mean, I just had, the writers group, I just had so many people praying for me, and
Yeah.
it just made me feel so peaceful, and I just knew everything was going to be okay.
Oh,
So,
that is so amazing. Everything just seems so God orchestrated, even though
mhm.
it's like a crazy, um, time in your life, and obviously, um, nothing anyone would hope for or wish for would happen to them, but just the series of events and how they happen and how they came about is just it's mind-blowing, and it could only have been God, working through what would be considered a very traumatic experience, and even what you said, you're pretty much an anxious person, but the peace of God was covering you, 'cause I could imagine I just couldn't imagine, like, just the total opposite of that, and it would be all valid. Like, what in the world?
Mhm.
This is crazy. Oh my gosh, you know. But to
Yeah.
hear you say that you had peace is just is supernatural.
Yes, it was. Yep. It's one of those things that, I believe that not every terrible thing has a lesson, like I think sometimes people like to say, oh, well, something good will come out of this or whatever. And I think that's sometimes I don't know, like I know it's a good thought, but I'm just not sure that it's always true or helpful to say that. But in this instance, truly, there were so many good things, and that's one of the greatest things that came from this is being able to look back and say that was God and that was God and that was only by the power of prayer and that was God. And just seeing all the good and all the people who rallied around us and all of the people who took care of my children and my small town community brought us meals for 3 weeks solid, and that was amazing, like just all the things.
Mhm.
So,
So truly just, the love of God in action is really what I'm
mhm,
hearing. Like,
yeah,
literally people being the hands and feet of Jesus in your
yep,
life during that time. Wow.
yep.
The couple of things you just said, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, these things can, like, preach for days and days." Not every terrible thing has a lesson, and then just being able to look back after everything and say, "That was God, that was God, that was God." It's, like, giving me chill bumps over here, like, "Oh my gosh, that's so
I know.
good."
18 months later, lots of parts make me teary, like just even thinking about through my pregnancy. I mean, it was in 2020, so I'm pregnant during a pandemic. In the first trimester, I did get COVID, and it was horrible for a solid couple of months, and just all these things. And then now looking back, I'm like, God was just giving me those hard things to prepare me. He was giving me the strength to make it through something really hard. And so it was, not fun at the time. And like I said, not every hard thing is preparing you for something else, but just looking back, definitely 2020 was preparing me for October of 2020 when I was going to need to rely on God's strength and get through the hardest thing I've ever been through. So,
Absolutely. It's so good. So, so good. So I guess just a few things that we can kind of start to chat through is how did this affect your faith?
well, I don't, as you can imagine, I don't know that anyone could go through something like this. And it's like when cliches are cliches because they're true. So when they say that you can't go through something like this and not just speak of the goodness of God for the rest of your life, it's true. Like I will never forget the miracles and the hand of God and the grace of God, and I'll just never be able to shut up about how amazing God is. So it just, I mean, I had faith before, and I'd say pretty strong faith. But now, I mean, I'll never, not that I won't ask God questions, because even in the last 18 months, there have been some things that have happened just in life that I would like to say, God, I don't really understand why you did that. But I just will never question God and his goodness. And so,
Mhm. And I love that because that was going to be kind of like my little follow up question is, did you question God during any of this? Um, and so you kind of answer that it doesn't um, acknowledging God's goodness doesn't void, or doesn't mean that we can't have questions,
mhm,
basically.
yeah, yep.
And so I love that how you said that it would never question the goodness of God because you've amazingly seen him do miracles in your life. But again, it doesn't mean that we can walk through life, or it doesn't mean we can't walk through life with some questions.
Exactly. Yep. there will always be things that I don't quite understand on this side of heaven, but
Mhm. So that was 2020. And so how has life been kinda navigating through what has happened and what has taken place? Like, maybe kind of fill us in with some of your real emotions or some of the day-to-day or, you know, because I can imagine because it was a traumatic experience. Like, how has that affected you?
this is a great topic. At first, I think um, it all happened so fast, like a whirlwind of 7 days away from home and from my family. And it just happened so fast that I don't think I had time in the moment to process things, which again was probably a blessing. You know, I just put one foot in front of the other and got through it and did what I needed to do. Um, and I really, um, again, after you go through something like this, I feel like, for me anyway, um, just made me grateful for every little thing. You know, it just makes you so aware of how much you have and how special your kids are and how blessed we are and all of the things. But after the first couple of months at home, I started to kind of feel just all the things, like all the emotions. I cried all the time. And some of it was just like I would simply cry at, you know, rocking my baby to sleep, you know, just the moments that I got to have. But there was also the feelings of like, why did I have to go through this? Why did, you know, this was a really scary thing for my kids and my husband. And there was just a lot of like guilt at why didn't I push harder to get my headaches diagnosed while I was pregnant? And like, I, you know, just all of the feelings, guilt and joy and gratitude and sadness and so many feelings. And so a few months after my surgery, I did start talking to a therapist to try and work through
Mhm.
all the emotions and just, you know, to, it was very validating to hear her say, because I felt like everything had the best possible outcome in the whole world, like so many miracles. And here I am perfectly fine and healthy again. What right do I have to feel like, to feel any grief or like that was trauma? And so just to hear a mental health therapist say, Michaela, that was a very traumatic event. Like
Mhm.
leaving your newborn, going to the emergency room, and then suddenly you're whisked away to a hospital in another state for 7 days away from your family, like a major brain surgery, all of these unknown things. You you have every, you know, right, and you have a need to heal from these things and to acknowledge that that was traumatic and that it's okay to feel gratitude that you are healthy and that things turned out the way that they did, but to also feel the emotions of sadness or guilt or grief
Mhm.
at, you know, what you went through and how I lost a week with my newborn baby. And just so I'm in a very good place now, but it took a few months of talking through things and, you
Mhm.
know, just working through all the emotions. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's so hard, and I love this conversation because I really want people to hear you and to hear others, to help them to know that it's okay. It's okay to grieve, you know, and because a lot of times it's those things that it's all they're almost invisible to those around us because like kind of like you saying, you had all the best possible outcomes,
mhm,
but only you, because it happened to you, would know how it made you feel. Like
mhm,
you lost a lot, which is so crazy, to think about it, you had all the possible wonderful outcomes, but you lost a lot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and and so I'm thankful so much for, like you said, the mental health therapist, because that's what, people who are suffering in silence, that's what is needed, acknowledgement of,
Mhm.
to acknowledge and to validate the feelings that
Exactly.
people are feeling in these times, because to carry that without letting it out or getting help leads to more things like depression and even
Mhm.
more anxiety. So,
I feel like it's very similar to birth trauma, which also is not talked about a lot, but so many people, you have a healthy baby and they get told, "Oh, that's all that matters. You have a healthy baby," when really if you've had birth trauma or if they've had any sort of birth trauma or, an unexpected or unanticipated birth process, a lot of moms just suffer in silence thinking, "Oh, I shouldn't feel sad about my birth because I have a healthy baby." And it's absolutely like that's kind of the one thing, not to jump to the end, but that is like my one message from today is I just hope that no matter what kind of trauma or grief, you just know that it's okay to you can have both. You can have gratitude, you can also feel the grief or the sadness or
mhm.
so.
Yes, I love that so much, and you can jump to the end at any time. Yes, because I absolutely love that. That's actually one, I dedicate a full chapter in my book on, like, grieving in silence, basically, those who
Can't
grieve
wait
in
to read it.
and, yeah, it's like you said, even with birth trauma, because I can just remember, um like, I love Jenny Albert's her new book that just came
Mhm,
out,
mhm,
Pregnancy After Loss, because it was, like, not even a concept, like, people,
mhm.
they didn't really talk
Mm,
about even when they started to talk about, like, miscarry and stuff like that, they still weren't talking about, "Well, how are you feeling, like, when you get pregnant again?" And so I had,
mhm,
like, the most difficult pregnancy even after, like, a stillbirth, and
mhm.
and it was so traumatic, and I couldn't
Yeah,
talk about it, and nobody would talk about it with me. It was just so horrible, and it's, like, taking all this time to kinda untangle a lot of that trauma
yeah.
that
I've
was,
learned
like.
so much from Jenny.
Say it again?
I've learned so much from Jenny.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And so I'm truly thankful for, our writers group and
Yes.
just having, making connections with you all just, like, through our writing and our stories, and it's
Mhm.
been so helpful and healing. And
Yeah,
so, but yeah, I feel like I went on a tangent, but but mainly just saying, just how important it is, to kinda advocate and try to bring awareness to, um, people who are suffering in silence, who are grieving in silence, because it's every loss is really a valid loss. And
yes.
so, like, just to bring back really quickly, just you had all the possible wonderful outcomes, but there was still some loss that needed it to be processed, and to
Mhm.
overlook that is doing would have done you no justice in
Yeah,
your life moving forward.
yep,
Mhm.
I was, yeah, kind of a mess. Like, I'd hear a song and cry or, just and it's okay to feel all of those emotions, but I needed to process it all and walk through it all slowly and deal with it and so that I could release it and be
Mhm.
at peace with it. And so,
So how even, like, present day, how do you continue to kinda walk through, like, what has happened, or how does it show up and pop up sometimes?
uh, well, I practiced some things. I can't remember what she called it. Um, I practiced some things with my therapist, like all of the songs that would just instantly bring me to tears. Like I just listened to them over and over and over again so that I could, you know, not have such strong emotions attached to them. But I mean, there's still 18 months later, there's certainly still, I'll see a picture or hear a song or something, and it'll take me back for just a moment. But um, like I said, I, have worked through it a lot, and I think I'm at the point where I just can thank God for all of the blessings that came from it. And it makes me even more grateful for the things that I have. And a lot of the things, before I went through all of that, a lot of the little things that would annoy me, like a kid waking up in the night or something, I just, every little thing is like an opportunity to say, like, I get to go
Mm.
snuggle my 4-year old in her bed when she wakes up in the night, or I get to be here for the hard moments. And so it's made me a lot more grateful for things, I think, and just remembering to thank God for everything, even the hard things. And
Mhm.
so
Yeah, I think us as we listen to your story helps me and those who are listening is my prayer to be more grateful as well because I've had to change um my thinking to that, and from I have to I get to,
mhm,
and just your story and stories like yours, it really is a reminder of, there's so much to be grateful for, you know.
mhm,
And so I so appreciate you so much, just taking time to share your story with us, and just how we can have hope even, as we go through hard things.
mhm,
Um, Kind of as you mentioned, like your story is just such a story so full of miracles. Like even 3 days
mhm.
after
Yeah.
surgery, you're walking out of the hospital?
Yes. I So at my 1-year checkup this last October, when I got to go meet with one of my surgeons in person, I asked him, I said, "So, about how many brain tumors have you removed in your career?" And both of my surgeons were really young, like probably my age, but he said, "Hundreds." And I said, "And how many, just an estimate, how many of those people walk out of the hospital 3 days later?" And he laughed and said, "I can maybe count them on one hand."
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, I knew that it was a miracle, but I
Mhm.
again just needed, like, I wanted to just know, like,
Yeah,
what a miracle. And
yeah.
sometimes we think that God doesn't do miracles like we read about in the Bible anymore, but he absolutely does every
He
day,
absolutely
even
does.
now. So,
Yes. Oh my gosh. So you guys, you are listening to a walking, living, breathing miracle today. It's just so amazing to me. Like it just blows my mind. And I'm just so honored just to know you and just to have spent this time with you today. So what is there something that you would like to leave with our listeners? I know we touched on a little bit of it, but is there anything that else that you would like to leave?
just like we touched on, and I also like to tell people now that you don't need to wait for your big, scary, life changing event before you can start practicing this gratitude. Just start now. Start, just start small if you need to, thanking God for the sunrise or the little things, or you know, your children, even when they're momming you to death every day. Just, you get to be there. You get to be the one that they're momming. So
I love that so much. It's, I'm learning and a lot even more recently how important gratitude is. It's like it's so easy to focus on the one negative thing out of the large array of wonderful things. And so just practice of gratitude. I love that so much. the last thing, how can listeners connect with you?
I am on Instagram as Cowgirl Boots and Running Shoes, kind of an ode to our farm life. And I also love to run and work out and things like that. I also have a blog by the same name, cowgirlbootsandrunningshoes.com, that I don't use much in this moment because that was another thing that changed after surgery. Was I went from trying to do all the things to deciding, in this season of my life, I need to be more present and pull back on a few things. So, but yeah, I'd love to chat on Instagram. That's my main platform that I use right now, I guess. So,
Okay. And that's like a whole little word or encouragement within itself, is to really just to be mindful of, I guess I said this way, the things that matter most.
yeah.
And
See, I told you there's a million lessons
oh,
that
really? It's so
that did
true.
happen from this, but yep.
Oh my goodness, so true. So, I mean, this has been such an awesome, powerful time. Just again honored to speak with this miracle in front of me. And so, Michaela, I just want to thank you so much for sitting with me today and sharing your story, your testimony, just how God has moved in your life, and just so many awesome, awesome lessons and nuggets that I know so many will be able to take from this today. So again, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
That brings me to the end of this episode. Thanks again for joining me, and thanks for listening to Can You Just Sit With Me? If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to come back for my next episode of Can You Just Sit With Me? Until then, this is Natasha Smith, helping you to find hope in grief, hope in the hard place, and hope in the challenging times of life. Be sure to connect with me across social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at I'm Natasha Smith.